I was in the right place at the right time and happened to see the right patient. So that's my sole achievement in life. Right place, right time. The first person that we're going to talk about is trochanteric bursitis. And this was a 77-year-old lady who had dementia. She had 42 months of right-sided hip pain. She'd had 5 steroid injections over 2 years. She had gastroesophageal reflux, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs weren't an option, because if any of you have heartburn, you know what they do to you. So the other thing is things like solpadeine, copidamol, anything with codeine in it, dramatically impaired her cognitive ability. So she's in a huge problem. And her husband had the power of attorney and was minding his wife and watching his wife every day being in pain, and it seemed there was no solution. So Dr. Nicolette Williams came along, and she was referred to her, and she put the lady, it was right-sided, she put her left-sided lateral lying, and she got a 17mm needle and inserted it at a point that we know, gallbladder 30. She inserts this to 50mm. Next, she has another needle, 25mm, and needles the greater trochanter. She leaves these needles in for 10 minutes, takes them out, and then the lady gets up and asks her what's going to be done with her. She had no idea, she had no recollection of the actual treatment. Obviously the chi was not obtained either. 3 weeks later, Dr. Williams receives a letter, and that's pretty much rare for most of us, I would say. We rarely get the thanks. And it was the husband expressing his gratitude because his wife had been pain-free ever since. And you can only imagine how he must have felt watching his wife in pain, and now his wife had no more pain. Because as we know, acupuncture changes lives. The second case is very similar. This was Dr. Peter Dilworth, and he had a lady. Let's just move it on quickly. Osteoarthritis of the knees. So she was 74. Now this lady had got progressively worse. She was no longer able to go upstairs or walk independently. Her daughter gave up work to mind her, and this lady would often cry with the pain. So Dr. Peter Dilworth arrives, and he uses, not a protocol, spleen 10, spleen 9, gallbladder 34, and stomach 36. Uses a 0.25mm needle, 30mm by 0.25, and puts them in. The lady doesn't respond, doesn't react. He leaves them in for 20 minutes. He doesn't elicit the chi, he doesn't stimulate the needles. He comes back a week later, slight bit of an improvement. On the 3rd week, this lady is walking independently and up and down the stairs. And you wouldn't believe it, because you think, how could that be? But that's what happened. And she never needed acupuncture again, and her daughter could go back working part-time. And all of a sudden, it was a difference maker. So now we come to me, my case. So my case, sorry about this. So my case was an 86-year-old lady. So to explain this case, I'll start from the very, very beginning. We will change their names for general data protection regulations and all that. So names are not true. Anyway, so Cora was in her mid-50s. She was a social worker, and she was attending to me for a bad arthritic knee. And she'd come in, and I would use spleen 10, spleen 9, not a protocol, spleen 10, spleen 9, stomach 36, and stomach 34. Now, why I don't do gallbladder 34 is I tend to avoid those ones that are close to nerves. So the common peroneal nerve is around there, so I tend to skip it. So I use stomach 34 instead. It's pretty much in the same line as spleen 10. I tell her, because you've got to be careful sometimes, I said, look, we'll see how you get on, give me a shout if you want to go again, and generally I won't see any more than 6. Now when I say that, it means that they know there's an end, okay? So they know that he's only going to see me 6, and that's only if I improve each time. Now, from a scheduling point of view, that's a nightmare, because people might text you on the Monday, and you could already be full, so it's not ideal. But it does sort of stop people from saying, oh, he brought me in 6 times, 8 times, and took all my money and all that stuff. Because that's actually hurtful when people say that. Because we wouldn't have